And let's get on going on this bi-weekly special interest group call for PnP Sites Core and PowerShell and the provisioning engine. Now, we do know that there's some community events ongoing today, so there's a lot of MVPs are actually in those events, and some of the people who would be participating on these are on those events as well. So we're not probably going to have a massive crowd of people today, but that's fine. All of these are getting recorded and shared using the YouTube channel as well. So welcome everybody. This is the special interest group for PnP Sites Core and PowerShell and the provisioning engine. And today we have few random topics to go through, or a few specific topics to go through. Just to quickly explain, the PnP, the SharePoint Patterns and Practices is a SharePoint engineering-driven open source community initiative where we work together with community to provide code samples, guidance, community calls, different kind of community calls. We have special interest groups and all of that. The themes are on SharePoint Framework, SharePoint add-ins, remote APIs, Microsoft Graph, Office 365 development. Not only on SharePoint Online, but also in on-premises. And we can talk about the on-premises, well, special random topics after the call as well. But AKMS SharePoint PnP, I just today updated the content on that page again, so it should be up to date with the latest information. Good. So for the agenda of today,
you've reached the voicemail of Ramona at Magenic Technologies. Please leave me a message. I'll be happy to return your call.
Let's actually leave somebody a really long message. So let's see how that goes. So the agenda for the day, we're going to quickly have an early look on the January 2017 statistics. It's already 25th of January, so we're not even close of the closure of the month, but the growth continues quite nicely. So the usage of the PnP core component and the PowerShell and the stuff what we are providing is increasing, which is a great thing. We're going to talk about quickly the SharePoint webhooks, which went GA or in production release last week. I think it was last week, yes. Just to pinpoint that one, and we're going to talk about actually that one also from a future perspective. So we're going to touch the site created event and how does that relate on the PnP provisioning engine in the future. Because right now the SharePoint webhooks is only for lists, but we will keep on evolving that capability in the future. Then the third topic is the German cloud considerations for customization, development, and PowerShell. Technically, this is not only just for German cloud, so any cloud deployment which is isolated from the public cloud has the exact same challenge. There will be or have been, and we're not sure, some additional announcements on that one on this different cloud services what Microsoft is doing. So we're gonna use the German as the example on that one, but the guidance applies on any isolated cloud, which Microsoft isn't operating, like the German cloud. German cloud is operated by the T systems to avoid, well, there's some sort of a legal implications on that. How can I, and that can be, yes, Bert is actually answering on the question on that one. Good. We're going to talk about that one, and Bert is going to do a live demo on the fact that, hey, what does it mean from a customization and PowerShell access perspective? Because you need to be aware of that. And we're going to do a live demo on that one as well. So, and then after the German cloud discussion, let's have a live demo on Visual Studio tooling. This is something really cool from Ivan Vagunin from Knowit, unless Ivan, you have switched the company. I think you're still working in Knowit, around the Visual Studio tooling for provisioning engines. So Ivan is going to show that. That's something which was merged today as a pull request to the PnP tools, and that's going to help on people to use the engine in the future as well. One thing actually, just now that I remember that, Ivan, if nothing else, I will take a screenshots out of today's demo and put screenshots on the README file, because right now in the GitHub we don't have any screenshots on that one, so people know what the tooling is actually providing, which is a really, really important thing. And then we will most likely have time for Q&A. So if you have any challenges on the PnP provisioning engine or questions around random SharePoint engineering questions from Farm Solutions, Feature Framework, SPFX, provisioning engine, CSAM, REST APIs, just feel free to unmute yourself or do an IM questions in the end. And we can answer them on the best what we can, if we can provide you an exact answer. But let's actually get on going on the statistics. So I have 2 slides on this one, just to kind of show you if you're wondering that, hey, the PnP provisioning sounds kind of cool, but is it actually used? And how about the core component? Is it actually used? That's why we actually collect the statistics. So we know how people are using our stuff and the PnP engine also in the SharePoint Online. Obviously, we cannot collect statistics from on-premises deployments, but we can collect statistics on a SharePoint Online because we are the Microsoft which is hosting the SharePoint Online. So we're able to figure out how people are using this tooling. And the January, we are now in 2020. That wasn't any Finglish or language or Finnish. That was just me and my brains having a hiccup. So let's actually rephrase that. So it's only January 25th today. These statistics have roughly until January 23rd. So we're still 1 week away from the full month. And we can already see the typical drop in the December, because the December there's a lot of holiday seasons on the left side of the graph, but then January is already hitting high up on the usage. And on January, just pinpointing that we already passed our record from a number of unique tenants using the PnP Sites Core or PowerShell. So right now we're in more than 3,100 tenants using our stuff, and roughly at 900 million HTTP requests going through the core or PowerShell components. And then on the right side, the chart is just showing the statistics around explicitly on the PnP provisioning engine usage. And we're pretty much on the same level as in December. So we have 781 tenants where the PnP provisioning engine has been used during January 2017, and we're roughly at 300 and that the green and the blue are the actual HTTP requests going through from those individual components. But we're already kind of leveling on the December numbers, which is really good. And on the core component usage in general, that has passed December already at this point, which is pretty cool. So, and a second kind of a statistics slide, just to quickly show you this. These are the January 2017 until the 23rd of January. So we do have the number one countries from a request perspective, understandable, is US and UK are typically the number one. Denmark is actually pretty close on UK. So if there's any Denmark people in this call, you want to increase your HTTP requests if you want to beat UK in January. But it's pretty close. Typically what it means is that, January, Denmark doesn't have as many tenants as in the UK, and that might indicate that there are quite a few migration cases going on in Denmark, and that's the reason why there's quite a lot of HTTP traffic coming from Denmark from that perspective. From a count of tenant ID perspective, US absolutely number one, United Kingdom second, Netherlands pretty close actually on UK, and then Germany, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and so on. Nothing that's super dramatical. The numbers and countries are pretty much the same in every single month. The overall usage is growing, but the individual country ranking seems to be relatively stable. Good. Switching the gears to the one of the topics which we kind of wanted to quickly touch base in this call as well, even though this doesn't precisely relate on the PnP core or the PnP PowerShell, but it does in the future more and more. So the SharePoint webhooks for lists are now generally available. which was announced last week, I think on Wednesday. And what it means is that you're able to use the webhook technology in SharePoint Online to get events based on the list. We will release a webcast on next Monday, updated webcast on the webhooks around this one, where we also show how to use webhooks using Azure Functions, and also the enterprise scenario using using Azure Web Apps and Web Jobs as well. But really going through in detail together with Bert Jansen in that webcast, what does it actually mean? How do you need to implement the webhooks, and what's the benefits out of the webhooks comparing, for example, remote event receivers, which they are more reliable, as simple as that. Few pointers are related on the webhooks, just to kind of mention this quickly. So right now, the SharePoint webhooks has been released for basic events in the SharePoint lists. And it is more reliable than the classic remote event receivers model, because in the remote event receiver model, you could have disconnectivity between the SharePoint and the remote connection, and there's no retry logic whenever item is, for example, added to the list. With webhooks, there is. So there is a retry logic. If you don't reply back from your event endpoint, then SharePoint will recall your endpoint, or the webhook endpoint, kind of getting a notification, hey, you didn't reply back. Here's the same notification one more time. And then the webhooks are industry standard model for handling events. So this is not a SharePoint specific thing. It is actually used by GitHub, as an example, has a webhook model, and many of the other services as well. And right now it supports only async events. So if something has happened, kind of an event, so you cannot actually cancel the event to be not happening. So, for example, in the classic events, if you're doing server-side farm solution, you would be able to cancel modification on an item. Using the event receivers, webhooks, you cannot do that. And Bert is about to continue with something, right?
No.
Okay.
Just responding in the chat window.
Yeah, I just saw you unmuted yourself, so sorry for that.
Oh yeah, probably by accident. But yeah, it's async by nature.
Yes.
There is no way around. And the whole webhook processing as well is an async model, if you do it the right way.
True. That's a good point.
Yeah, just plug in our webcast, which will release soon. We'll get all the details around.
Yeah.
Kind of building an enterprise-ready pattern to handle web jobs. So all the IP knowledge will be there for you to consume.
Absolutely. And we do have already existing guidance. I'm going to go one step back and one slide back. If you use the AKMS SB webhooks as the URL, you'll land to the dev.office.com webhooks documentation, where we have multiple articles using the webhooks, including Azure Functions usage of webhooks and all of that. So there's already guidance out there. Next Monday, we'll release a webcast related on the webhooks as well, kind of a refresh on something which we did back in last summer with Bert.
Yes, and the sample which we use in the webcast is also already available publicly.
Yes.
So if you go to the samples mentioned in the link that I just showed, you will find this one as well, so the Azure application, next to the provider-hosted application.
Yes, indeed. Good. Just to kind of further elaborate, what are we going to do with the webhooks in the future? And this more relates on the PnP provisioning engine and the core component, or the CSAM core component. So we actually announced this, the fact that we're planning to do this already back in Atlanta Ignite in September last year. So the webhooks for lists is a number one thing. That's the step number one. What we will do quite soon is that we will release also a webhooks for site created event. And this is where then, for example, the PnP provisioning engine actually has a role. So what will happen is that whenever you create a new modern team site or a classic team site, obviously depending on settings, the site itself will first get created using the out-of-the-box template, group #0 or STS #1 or 0 for team site, out of the classic team site. And then immediately when that site has been created, if you have subscribed to your site created event as a webhook, we will fire that webhook towards your system, towards your web API or Azure Functions endpoint or whatever. And then from there, we can actually do modifications to the site. And this is really kind of a step number one towards the future way of doing customizations with the modern team sites, as an example. Whatever happens with the webhook endpoint or behind of the webhook endpoint is up to you. Typically, obviously, you would be using then CSAM or REST APIs to modify the site, and the most easiest way to do that is then to use the PnP provisioning engine. So this one is planned to go live during spring this calendar year, but we don't have exact timing yet at this point because we need to get stuff. There's a lot of stuff going out from SharePoint engineering right now, so we need to get the priorities and resources to finalize all of this implementation. Kind of related on, just to further elaborate on this model, obviously if we want to think about this from a real enterprise scenario implementation perspective, the future model of site created event with the webhook, the future webhook which is coming, what will happen is that you'll create a new team site or modern team sites or a classic team site, will instantiate the webhook, will call your webhook service, which could be, like mentioned, it could be Azure Functions endpoint, it could be a web API, it could be a Node.js API, it doesn't really matter. Typically, what needs to happen is that your endpoint will need to reply back in less than 5 seconds, or otherwise SharePoint will think that, hey, it seems to be that the endpoint it wasn't alive, let me retry. So the endpoint has to reply back in less than 5 seconds, and that means that we need to fall back on a synchronous way of processing this request. So, and the easiest way to do that is to take advantage of Azure storage queues if you are in the Azure platform. And so whenever the webhook service is instantiated, we'll actually add a message to the storage queue. And at this point, we'll return back a message for SharePoint Online saying, yeah, 200, all good, we've been executed. And then asynchronously, your actual process, it could be a web job or it could be an Azure function, will start actually processing that message, which is containing then the details and IDs of the site which was created. So you're able to then connect to the site and apply the modifications in. And then the web job or Azure function is then applying the configurations. That's pretty much the classic story, which we've been kind of showing in the PnP side with an asynchronous provisioning for a long time. The fact that are using Azure Web Job, Azure Functions, that only changes certain parts of the pattern. So the storage queue is really the easiest way, maybe to queue up the tasks, and then the implementation will most likely take still advantage of the PnP provisioning engine at this point. Until at some point when we will have a native similar kind of capability maybe in SharePoint Online as the PnP provisioning engine, but we're pretty far from that yet. So we'll keep on using the PnP community tooling for now for all of these operations. Good. I think that's relatively fast and quick clarifications on the webhook, which I just wanted to explain where we're heading with the webhooks. Now that the list webhooks are live, the site created is then the next one, which we're looking into implementing, and that will then enable additional scenarios for you to take advantage. And let's actually move into the German cloud discussion. Good. On this one, so quickly kind of key pointers. So the German cloud, I think we publicly announced this yesterday, or there was a blog post related on Office 365 at least yesterday. And it is an isolated Azure instance and Office 365 instance in the Germany. And this is completely independent from public clouds and available only in EU EFTA entities. So essentially the companies which are located in Europe. And the whole system is actually operated and controlled by an independent data trustee. In the case of German cloud, it is T-Systems, which is essentially manipulating that. And that's to whatever legal isolation thing is. That's a different discussion. It is what it is. Now, if you're building any customizations against the German cloud, you actually need to take this one into account because the URLs are slightly different. So the authorization URLs are no longer the same as they used to be with the public cloud. And even like mentioned in the Ion window discussion, the tenant URL of the customer or the deployment is different as well, because it is actually .de as within the address. So it's no longer, let's say, Microsoft.SharePoint.com. It would be then Microsoft.SharePoint.de if the Microsoft tenant would be hosted in German cloud. But I think it's easier to the needed changes within a customization. I think the easiest way to actually have a look on them is to let Bert to do a live demo on that one, and let's talk about the differences as we move along. So, yep, Bert, just feel free to start sharing.
That's what I'm doing. Hopefully Skype will keep running, because I just thought.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah. No, it's a hardware issue. It's a hardware issue.
Right. Yeah. It's my router failed.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I got your screen. Oh, it's still black. Come on. There we go. Now I can see your screen. Cool.
Yeah. Well, it is black Visual Studio, so.
Yeah, but it was fully black. Come on. But anyway, take it away.
Yeah. So a quick demo on the German environment using PnP bits. So we extended the PnP components that deal with authentication to also handle the German environment. So essentially, what I'm going to show you is two things. One is an app-only authentication against the German environment, and the other one is an Azure AD-based authentication. As you notice here, oops, not this one. Over here. Sorry for that. This is our URL. You see SharePoint.de, which indicates this is the German environment. So my site is living over there. And what I'm going to do first of all is doing an app-only authentication. So we need an app ID and an app secret. In our case, we are using the PnP Authentication Manager class with the get app-only authenticated context method. I think that's a very popular way on grabbing an app-only context. Now, you used to simply provide site URL and the app ID, app secret, and that's it. And you got your valid client context. Now, for Germany, we had to change this method. So we have optional parameter where you can specify the environment to use. So in this case, we're saying Azure environment.Germany to specify Germany. If you do not specify anything at all, if you just leave it out, the default behavior will be there, meaning it will just keep on working. For your existing deployments, no worries, everything stays working. If you, however, have code that is running against the German environment, you need to plug this in. If you make applications that need to run across multiple environments, I would recommend having this in your configuration data somewhere so that your code automatically detects our configuration says I'm running in Germany, so automatically I will apply this additional switch to the method. So when I run this, I'm going to press F5, it's running. It's not the most spectacular demo because it will just give me a client context, and then I'm going to press F5. Essentially, I'm going to just read the site title and show it. It's a proof that it works. So we got the site title from our German site back. All right, let's take this one step forward and let's switch to Azure AD-based authentication. These guys. And let's go over here, interactive authentication using Azure AD.
And maybe while you're doing that, just to clarify, the Azure environment switch and enum, what you have there, essentially what happens there is that inside of the core component, we're switching the URL, which we used as an authorization endpoint. Because just pinpointing that one, because if somebody isn't using the PnP.js core, they want to use the native CSM, they need to be aware of the URL switch.
Yes, I can show that after this short demo. I will just have a look at that code, and so it gets more clear.
to be fair, why wouldn't you use the PnP core component?
Yeah, especially for you could still argue about for the regular app only. That's also fairly easy in regular code without PnP. But if you do like the getting a context token from an Azure session, that's slightly harder. So in this case, it's just easier to use PnP. Again, same trick. We have an Azure AD application this time, so defined inside Azure AD. We use Authentication Manager with the get Azure AD native application authentication context method. Nothing new if you have used it before, but again at the very end, oops, we specify which environment to use. 5. Now this is an interactive logon. Did I miss? Oh no. So here we are. So I need to specify a user. So let's take my user and my password. So the user also lives in the onmicrosoft.de domain. So that will be the default domain used for those tenants living in Germany. Let's sign in, and it will be the same thing. I get an Azure Access token, which I then will use to submit as bearer token inside the SharePoint REST. To this, again, the same site title. All right, quickly on the URLs. So in PnP, we extended the Authentication Manager class. It's not released yet, so it's only in the dev bits. But in here, if I go, for example, for the app-only one section, you will find and get Azure AD ACS endpoint, which delivers you the endpoint you use when you do app-only using Azure ACS, so the classic SharePoint app-only. Default access point would be access control to Windows.net, but for Germany it will be login microsoftonline.de, for example. So we've plugged this into PnP. If you're not using PnP, you can do the same thing with you need to replace the URLs in your source code. So typically one place to change is tokenhelper.cs. So for app only, if you're using that one. So you can simply update the URLs in your tokenhelper.cs implementation, and you're good to go. Or if you use PnP, it's just a matter of applying the right switch, and then your code does work. We have the same for Azure AD. So there's also different Azure AD login endpoints. So the default one is login Windows.net, and for Germany we have login.microsoftonline.de again. What else? Quickly, we will get a new PowerShell version out. So now I'm talking about official Microsoft PowerShell, so the tenant PowerShell. So what I can do over here is do the following. I connect SPO service, which is connecting to an endpoint. In this case, I'm connecting to my admin site in the German environment. But notice that you now have an optional parameter region. So you can specify that you're connecting to a region Germany. So we're not automatically detecting that this is Germany. Although actually, why don't we do that? But yeah,
we could theoretically, yeah, that's a fair point.
We should be able to figure out where it lives, but somehow someone decided let's add a region parameter. So here we are.
So you have to specify the region, then you can connect, and you again specify your user and your password. If I copy it correctly, sign in. Then you don't get errors, just to prove that it works. I'm going to grab that site we used before, using the get SPO site, and we get results. What we will be doing as well is extending PnP PowerShell, so you can also use PnP PowerShell against the German environment. We'll add a similar switch concept, or maybe we do an auto-detect. Actually, that isn't really not a bad idea to build it into PnP itself. But yeah, you will get support for that one as well pretty soon. I think, Vesta, that sums up the demo around the German environment.
Cool. Dean is asking how many countries have isolated environments. Right now, German and I think China has one isolated environment as well.
If you look at the code, you get some impression, but yeah.
Yes, it's ITAR, which is a US isolated environment, China and Germany right now. But the key point, obviously, is that in the future, if and when there will be additional environments, we can actually flip and further enhance the code, the native code, and also the PnP core component code based on the usage as well. While we feel free to ask any questions, let's actually now switch then to Ivan so that we have enough time also for Q&A after Ivan's session. So Ivan, feel free to take over the sharing. And Ivan's going to show something Visual Studio tooling around the PnP core component and, well, to be precise, provisioning engine usage, which he has contributed on the PnP tools repository.
Okay, I'm starting sharing.
Good.
Let me know
I got it.
when you can see.
At least I got it.
Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate solutions that I recently submitted to PnP tools repository, and it was, I guess, just a few hours ago. It was merged quite quickly. The idea behind that solution is to implement a set of developer tools that will help to develop a provisioning template for PnP provisioning engine. So let me just start with a demo so you can get an impression. I will probably start magnifier here, and I have here Visual Studio opened with those extension installed. And if I go and try to create a new project here, get standard dialog. If I search for PnP, I actually get this template, but this is the right one. This is the crappy one. So I have this SharePoint PnP site template here, and I can provide name for that. Name project like mine. Just this template. And create. There is no any other parameters for this project template. Create, and project is created. Let's check what's inside. And it's a bit creepy with magnifier, but nevertheless, project template is based on C# library, and out of the box you get provision some content here. Let's check. Actually have site template XML file, which is an XML based provisioning template. You can see here what's inside. It's actually just an empty template. Here you have a configuration file, also XML based configuration, and we will come back a bit later to that. And just we have folder with all the provisioning schemas taken from also PnP GitHub repository. And you just need the schemas here to get IntelliSense support when you edit the XML. So that's a bit nicer to have it in the project. So it will be parsed by IntelliSense and you will get support when you develop the XML. Yep. But before we start, let's check actual settings file. The settings file contains some properties for template that you can change, and I will show how they will be applied once you change them. And the good thing is that you don't have to actually edit this XML file, because I managed to create a custom project property page here. So if you go to project properties, you can see here provisioning template tab, which have the same properties that you could see in this xml.config file. So you can update those. Example this, offer fields. You just have this limited number of fields now. I just took them from requirements for the provisioning template for template gallery that are published in GitHub. I can uncheck and check supported versions and save them. And if I check, I can actually see that underneath just this XML gets updated by this current custom property tab. Okay, so I updated my project properties, and if I go and build it, let's see what happens. And now open just folder. Here also there is no any fancy build output currently, but if you just go to debug folder, here you can see that there is standard output from building a library project and also the .pnp package file. So if we check what is inside of that file, we can actually find the structure, pretty standard. Open XML file, and here our template, actual template file, the XML template, and we can see that it has those properties set as we defined on the project property tab here. All these custom properties, this image preview and display name, and also author is specified somewhere, probably in manifest. No, not remember, but in some other file you will also get author name there. Okay, that's just an empty template. What else we can do? Here we can add some content file to our template. For example, if I add new item here, probably I will check in magnifier so you can see better. Here, image, probably PNG, some name. So now I have some content file. It doesn't have to be image, it can be a web page or CSS, JavaScript, whatever. I will just draw some simple picture here. All right, so now I have this content file in my project, and what I can do, I can go to template itself and include this content file in my template using PnP files section here. You can see IntelliSense is working nicely. I just specify the source path related, the path should be related to the project root directory. So in this case, I just specify my image.png and the target folder. I don't know. I'm not going to deploy that anyway. Probably just site assets. Okay, good. XML seems to be valid. I can save and build it again. And once it gets built, I have now a new .pnp package. Let's check if it was really updated, if it really has the content inside. And if we check here, yes, it actually does. You can see that it's a valid file, it's not corrupted or something. Currently, that's basically it, what this template can do. So you can set properties for your provisioning template, you can add content files, and that would be automatically packaged on a build event in Visual Studio. I hope that in future it will have more functionality, and I have a long list of ideas on my mind, but let's probably also check some code here of that solution. In solution itself, you can see like magnifier, please. Let's see, there are 4 projects here. Custom have some helpers method. Let's come back to build task later. Here there is this Visual Studio project, which is actual extension package for Visual Studio, and have Visual Studio related extension stuff. For example, this property page here, And as I was implementing that, I found out that extending Visual Studio it's actually quite a tricky task because it have so many different project systems which are not compatible, and so little documentation on how to extend it properly. So I'm not sure if this kind of extensions are supported in any other versions that I use. I actually use 2015 version, and not sure if this is actually the right way to extend Visual Studio, or if it will be supported in future versions. So if anyone knows, that would be definitely valid feedback on Visual Studio extension. Here, site project template. It's a template project itself where you add some content files that you could show schemas and site templates and initial config file. Well, here and the MS build task. There is only one simple task which actually builds this OpenXML package on a build event here, and code is, you can see, it's quite simple. What it does, it reads that XML template. It's a file with a predefined name currently, and it reads it using the XML file system template provider and with file system connector. So then it sets those custom properties and save it. Creates an OpenXML connector, save all the files that were parsed in the template, and then send the save template to XML itself. So as simple as that, but it does the work. And as I said, it's just initial solution. I have a long list of ideas how it can be extended and what else can be implemented with that. Developer tools, probably the first thing could be to have multiple templates in a single package, because currently it works like single template per package, which is not the most commonly, I guess, case. At least we don't use that much for real project. We usually have multiple templates in package. One thing good to have would be to be able to start debugging and have this template applied to a site and attach debugger to process if it's on premises. But that would be a bit more tricky, because this code to build a PnP package itself, it's kind of platform independent. So you don't have to implement different versions to support SharePoint Online or SharePoint On-Prem here. But to deploy, you have to implement different versions for different target platforms, and that would be a tricky, not something that's not doable, but just need time to implement. So that's it. What
yep.
I have now, so I'm absolutely interested. Yeah.
So,
yes.
and absolutely, you already got a good feedback on people saying this is great, and it's a great tool, and it's a great structure. So, in your company are using this for your provisioning, like you mentioned, right? So, whenever you are creating your designs for the templates, are you using this, or is this still a conceptual idea? Just out of curiosity.
Currently, it's more like conceptual. We use a similar approach, but a bit different. We don't use exactly this solution now. Instead, we use out-of-the-box project templates with custom post-built events.
Yeah.
Basically, plain PowerShell scripts that makes this kind of job, but the idea is to make it like a bit more flexible and
True.
A bit more extensible than just have a PowerShell. So it's not really in use now, but I hope it will be soon.
Yep. And to be fair, I think that a lot of just the IntelliSense is actually providing a lot of value, because this way you can actually get inside of the XMLs, and when you compile, you can still get a PnP file out of it, or PnP template file. So that's really beneficial as well. So super cool. So this is already available in the PnP tools repository. We probably need to still work on, okay, how do I actually get all of this stuff into use? Where do I install this? And a few screenshots on the README file on that one. But I think there will be a lot of interest of actually people starting to use this kind of a model as well. And hopefully we can see this further enhance in the future and evolve even more. Because like mentioned with the site created event and webhook, so even though we're heading to the modern sites in the SharePoint Online, the PnP engine will have a future as well. So you most likely will use the engine to provision assets, content types, fields and lists and all of that stuff in the future as well. So
yeah.
Cool. Let me actually switch back on the slides so we can open up the discussion for Q&A. And if there's any follow-up discussion points. We do have quite a lot of time. We have 14 minutes extra time. We do not have to spend the whole 14 minutes whenever we get the slides actually back online. Loading. Come on. One thing maybe to mention when it's loading, we've been getting, every now and then we're getting reports related on some failures in the engine execution, do missing properties or missing file types and everything else. And all of those reports are super useful. So we are absolutely aware of the possible issues within the engine. One thing though, whenever anybody is reporting any issues, I'm going to flip into the Q&A slide, please do remember to report environmental details. Essentially, is this on-premises, is this SharePoint Online? If it's an on-premises, which CU it is, because otherwise there are massive differences, especially in on-premises, how the CUs actually work. And the second thing to understand is that which of the PnP versions you're using, so which of the monthly releases you're using, because otherwise, if we cannot reproduce the issue, we cannot fix the issue. And the only way we can reproduce the issue is to understand the right versions and what was actually in the template as well. But in general, we have, like mentioned, we have now 12 minutes, time is running, for any Q&A on today's topics, on SharePoint development in general, whatever topics people might have questions. And we'll come up with whatever random answers, well, hopefully right answers as well. So if you have anything to ask, feel free to use the iron window or even unmute yourself and just hit a question. Or if you're running on an issue, if you have an issue already submitted in a GitHub and you want to comment on that issue, we can actually go through some of those as well. If there's any questions. So let's give a few seconds time. I can have questions towards myself. So hey Vesa, what's your favorite color? Thank you, it is yellow.
Hi.
I thought it was orange.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, it's Ivan again. So, if no one has, I have another topic to discuss.
Absolutely.
Probably not related to developer tools. In our project, we recently have a need to implement a data replication solution. The requirements behind that solution would be to have a kind of data repository, central repository, and configurable rules so you can specify which site collections should get which data from that repository. That kind of management UI or something. And we implemented different kind of solutions for that, but I'd like to know if there is some guidance or patterns on that one could share.
So replication of site data from a centralized location.
Yeah, for example, there is some, I don't know, list in one site collection, on root site collection, whatever site collection, where you can specify, for example, I want to push these particular items to site collections that have some particular properties.
Ooh. That's good. There's multiple ways of obviously implementing that. Well, well, you know that Ivan, you probably implemented that, like you mentioned, as a full custom implementation, because the provisioning engine itself, obviously, it's not a migration engine. So if we're talking about content, then the PnP provisioning engine isn't what you're looking for. It is not the solution what you're looking for. But
that's exactly the reason it's not good for content migration.
True.
Or synchronization, actually.
And even though from a PnP perspective, I think even from a day one when we started creating the engine, we started talking about theoretically having the support for the content, but then content migration scenarios are extremely difficult. And if we would open up that, let's say, the can of worms with the PnP, we would run out of people to support with the questions, and plus the fact that there are third-party providers who provide migration tooling, so for living. So
yes, but it's it's not exactly data migration scenario. It's more like data synchronization across the site collections.
True. True.
It's not one-time operation. It needs to be like full synchronization, because when items are deleted, they should be retracted from that site collections as well. So it should work both ways.
You can have
I just wanted to know if someone implemented something like that and can share the experience. We can share our, but probably not in this call. Probably later.
Bert, you were planning to say something?
I was just want to point to the webhook sample, which has like a good implementation of the getChanges API to grab what changed on the list and then to act upon. But Ivan already has built this, so I think that's not the question how to build this. More like, does it make sense to share it? Is that your question, Ivan? Like, do you want to share it? And then you're asking, like, does it make sense to share it?
I guess at the moment we don't have anything that we could just share it, because we implemented a few kind of that solutions, but we could not find some best practice so far for that. I just wanted to know if someone have something really good design patterns to implement that kind of solutions.
The getChanges pattern we use for webhooks makes sense, I think, where you have essentially store the last used change token, persisted somewhere in a database, and then with the next change you can pick it up again. You could use a webhook as well, like if something in your master list happens, the webhook fires use the getChanges, grab the changes, so you get like 5 records were deleted, 5 were added, 1 was changed, and you then process those changes, which in your case means actually, okay, I need to add this record in these other site collections or remove it from there. So actually the pattern, I think, can make it easy for you, and we have a lot of code already available at that point.
Yes, that sounds good. Thanks.
Good. And we do have 7 minutes. Well, there's comments around the migration discussion. The migration is always a hard topic, no doubt. So, and when do you actually start using a company product? When do you implement that by yourself? And it's a delicate decision when to make that happen.
For migration, there's also the migration APIs, Professor. So there's IC products, they use specific migration APIs which allow for high volume data flowing into SharePoint Online, which you can't achieve with regular CISO.
Yeah, that's true. Now, any other question? Dean is asking, does anyone know if SharePoint Online Search Del will ever have ability to search way Microsoft Teams, Power BI, Planner, or Power Apps? I'm envisioning an ability to have a content sources on every service available in Office 365, as well as ability to refine results by each of those various content types. I don't want to actually speculate anything, but no, I'm not going to say anything because I might actually say something which I shouldn't be saying. But absolutely, no. So Dean's request makes a lot of sense. It would be feasible and understandable that in Office 365 we would have a one centralized search which is able to access the other information as well. Like the classic story, why did Yammer had their own search and why wasn't that information crawled by the search in Office 365? So And that's a fair comment. There has not been that much new in search for quite a while, and that's partly because some of it is sharing, search is sharing some of the resources, for example, with Delve internally in Microsoft. So whenever we invest on certain areas, it's always away from certain areas. So the priorities are switching always when we do investments on certain areas. Is Yammer part of the search yet? I don't think so, no. It has its own search experience. It should be, no doubt. And we all know, well, we all understand that it should be underneath one search, but still. But I think we'll see changes in the search side in the future, no doubt. We're not going to, although the search is a critical part of the Microsoft Graph and Delve and the Office Graph and the logistics inside of the SharePoint. Even though we're not investing maybe in the UI of search, or you haven't actually seen any changes in there, it doesn't mean that we're not investing on search. So there has been still investments on that one. But we'll see when there's something to communicate, hopefully soon. Good. We're hitting the 4-minute marker. We're pretty close on the hour, so we don't actually need to need to keep on dwelling on the Q&A section. Just to comment on Dean's absolutely understandable comment, which we're getting across all of the channels, across all of the different capabilities. So getting something on a roadmap would be pretty cool, and no doubt that would be pretty cool. The problem of, I'm not going to even speculate why we don't have stuff in the roadmap. Maybe I should not say anything. Immediately when stuff is in the roadmap, we are kind of committing on doing that. And then the question is, what would we add on the roadmap, which would be detailed enough, but not too locking enough for the capabilities which are coming. That's a kind of a classic challenge of analyzing what do we want to share, what do we not want to share, what if we pull this feature and it was in a roadmap and now somebody is getting crazy because you said that you're going to do that and then you switch that to not to be delivered status. So it's a challenging, it's a really challenging communicational challenge. And Yammer integration in SharePoint Search would be good commitment. Absolutely agree on that. That's understandable ask, and I think a lot of people have been asking that for a long time. So it's not really a new thing to ask either. Good. I don't think we have any massive amount of questions in queue, so we can actually close up the call a few minutes early, which is absolutely fine. We'll get the video, the recording to the YouTube channel, the PnP YouTube channel, within 24 hours. So it's going to be there tomorrow by this time, with the tech community announcement with links to the specific demo sections if you're just interested on the demos. But thank you everybody for joining, and thank you for your commitment and sharing your knowledge, and thank you Ivan and Bert for the demos as well. I think it's highly beneficial that people are seeing what others are doing and seeing how things are, how others are using the tooling which is available. But thank you everybody, thank you, and let's see in the follow-up community calls. Cheers, bye-bye.